tongue, I am known as Puck.
Yo, what is up everyone, it's Mini TV here. It's been such a long time since I last made a video, and I'm really happy to be back today making videos, and not just any video. Today is going to be back to where we all started and where we all began, which was the Immortal Way video series, and today I have the perfect hero for it, my probably favourite hero of the whole game, which is Puck. The hero has been incredibly strong now in this patch, and the DPC has shown it as well. First picked, first banned, and even though it did get a slight touch-up nerf in the 7.28C patch, the hero is still incredibly strong, and if you want to be playing this hero, you need to be watching this video. So, without further ado guys, let's jump into the game and learn all there is to be about Puck mid lane. So guys, this is the game. Actually quite somewhat privileged because this is one of our uni games actually, and I've been playing mid for our University College London team. We've been kind of getting first and second out of the whole universities in all of the UK that are participating in this Dota League. So it's been a really good, and I thought it's a fantastic game because it really shows a lot of the elements of Puck as a hero. So starting off, as you can sort of see, I'm just sort of rushing out, orbing to get down a ward mid, kind of really easy thing you can do, don't really need the mana. But before I get into that, I just want to talk about why and when to pick Puck. Put simply, whenever, however. We ended up with him sort of first picking Puck throughout this whole tournament, and as most DPC teams are as well that are comfortable in playing Puck, the hero's in such a good position right now, and it's so strong that you can just first pick it. And in this case, we kind of were utilising it with things like AA and Mars. You know, this good AoE team fighting kind of dump a lot of damage into the coil. Keep in mind, obviously there is a few heroes that are really strong against Puck. Nick is pretty strong because obviously you can carapace the orb, but particularly in terms of the position 4 roles, it's normally the Lions and the Shadow Shamans because they have this instant disable with their hexes that are really important to keep aware of. So here, I'm just trying to get the RTZ block, so like all the creeps go on one side, and it makes for an easier block, as you can see here. I normally do this really poorly because I just want to make a quick disclaimer. I'm not usually the mid player, but because I've played every single role in this tournament, except for mid, I wanted to play mid this one tournament, sort of, I don't know, just the completionist in me wanted to do this. But as you can see here, even with the perfect block, I was still like really behind. Ideally, obviously, you want it on your own hill here, particularly if you're playing against a melee, because then you have this kind of range advantage, and if you're against a range as well, then they have the 20-25% miss chance that occurs from you know, uphill miss. So one thing that I've learned a lot playing mid, I was watching a lot of like Samao, these top mids, is that a lot of times whenever they play heroes like Puck or other heroes like even like Lina, a lot of the times they try and do is just right-click the enemy mid as much as possible, and when it comes to the CS, is using their spells to get CS as much as possible. So obviously the first 2 or 3 creeps there, I was just really right-clicking as much as I can onto the Tiny, and then CSing with the Illusion Orb. In this scenario actually, and this comes more down to the block than anything, I'm just going to pause it because it's quite important to note. One thing that did happen quite a lot because I was right-clicking the Tiny was that my wave died quicker, or quicker than his, and as a result he got an early level 2, got the stun, and as a result he is technically above me, but I still have this CS to do here as well. And you'll see in higher tier games where this early level advantage in the mid lane will get abused for the mid. So in this case, I didn't play it perfectly. Ideally, we'd have our creep waves dying at the same time. If not, I should be wanting to clear my creep wave so I can be doing this to him. It's a lot harder to CS under tower, particularly when the enemy mid is in your face, trying to deny, trying to put you off getting CS. And particularly in the mid lane, one thing I've learned a lot is that any small advantage where you can try and get advantage of it. And so in this case, I'm just trying to get as much CS as I can, but like he gets a deny on the range creep. Now I've got a split between 2 or 3 different CS, and it's all because of the CS under my tower. I'm doing okay here, like 5-on-1 versus his 6-on-1, but as you can see, it's not ideal altogether. So at level 2, I get phase shift. This is a really important thing to note. It's in the matchup as well, because like someone like Tiny, for example, like if he gets off the stun, you can phase shift in between it and dodge a lot of damage. In this case, I'm like trying to put him off as much as I can in terms of the CS here. In this case, like I sort of see him coming, he's going to try and toss me back, so I run away, like he's going to be missing a lot of CS. Unfortunately, kind of I walk too close and try and right click him, and in the end, like he does toss me back, so I just got a little bit greedy. I wanted a phase shift. I probably could have, well, in this case I needed to obviously orb first and then phase shift, but I took a lot of damage here, kind of unnecessary, and again, he's going to start pressuring my creep wave when it's under my tower, gets like a deny there, and almost denies or pseudo denies the range creep there as well. And so this will happen a lot in the matchups where the wave keeps kind of boomeranging between, as you can see, I'm kind of missing a lot of easy CS that I shouldn't be. Yeah, we'll kind of boomerang between your wave and the enemy wave, and a lot of this comes down to the first one or two waves, and if this happens. And in this case, this really kind of favours the Tiny compared to over me, because like he has a lot higher base damage. He has what is it? 73, and he has the tree thrower as well. So in that case, this CSing on the tower is a lot more favourable to him than me. So small things there as well that I could have and should have done is, again, I should be trying to like right click the Tiny, and when it comes to the CSing, trying to use my spells to both harass him and get the CS as well. So opportunities to like use Waning Rift or Illusory the Orb as well, to get harassment onto the Tiny as well as the CS as well. Right now, I'm kind of losing this matchup. I think it's important to note though as well that Tiny is picked in combination, or sorry, not combination, in response to Puck. This was the overall first pick of the draft was Puck, so it is expected to be somewhat drafted against and countered in some aspects. And Tiny is one of those heroes. DK as well, these kind of melee heroes that are very tanky, hard to kind of kill. In this case, obviously, I'm trying to go for a rune. Well, let me just pause. I want to finish the first point before I talk on to the next point. Yeah, so heroes like Tiny, DK are kind of quite usually picked in response to Puck, because they have this high base damage, hard to kill, and also, particularly when it comes to Tiny, is that when he gets high enough levels, he can solo burst and solo kill the Puck. So overall, Tiny does win this matchup. Probably shouldn't maybe be winning the lane this strongly, but it's something to note as well. So talking about this 4-minute room, obviously because we're playing in a somewhat of a competitive game, the enemy support rotated, as you see in the DPC, for my runes here bot lane. Really important to sort of almost see if you can kind of get your own supports, because particularly when you play bottle versus bottle matchups, in this case Tiny versus Puck, both going bottle, if he didn't have this haste rune, and if I had the haste rune and he's sitting on 400 HP, I can threaten a kill. But because he has it and I don't, then he's just more able to stay in the lane, and not only that, but I can't really threaten a kill. Whereas if I get low enough, perhaps he can threaten me, for example. So kind of again just like trying to threaten my CS on the tower, and it's kind of working. I'm missing these easy CS that I wouldn't do if he wasn't here. But this guy's like pretty good. Like he's like sort of 6k as well, so he knows what he's doing. So right now, obviously, because I didn't get the 4-minute rune, really important that I try and get the next rune, because I don't want to be going back to base. I want to kind of really prioritize getting as much, or sitting in the lane as much as I can. Having to use the coil here, because this Tiny was going to try and contest the bounty runes, because the guy's not a bad player, knows what he's doing. I'm just going to finish off these CS, because they're kind of low, and then get straight over to the wave. Kind of nice for him to actually combo this wave for me, because then the wave will be pushing into my tower. Quickly talking about item builds as well, which I kind of have stopped to mention. If we just go back quickly, I think this is really important, because I think this is almost what I do on almost every single game, and almost what every single other mid player does as well. So obviously these are the starting item builds: double circlet, one mantle, iron branch, interfering fire. This is the same item build that you'll start with almost any intellect mid hero. The same goes for Puck as well. The one iron branch is normally used to sort of plant it and then eat the tango, so you get double duration from it. The Fairy Fire is good just for help base damage and also in clutch scenarios where you need to use it to turn. And the double circlet is normally preferred over the double mantle intelligence, even if you do intend to use and buy double null talisman, which I do end up doing here as well. So the first item I end up buying is just another set of tangos. As you can see here, I like planted the tree, and then yeah, as you can sort of see here. But just going back to where we were, oh, went a bit too far ahead. Let's just go back. Yeah, I think we're good. Yes. So yeah, so bought a set of tangos. Now this is something that has been happening probably in the last 1 or 2 months. Normally a lot of mids were going this early salve, but really like after a while, like everyone was buying tangos because not only are they cheaper, but they're also more useful in certain scenarios. In the scenario where you're like 60% HP, you don't really want to be popping a salve to kind of get you back to full HP. You just want to be having tangos instead. So a lot of the mids are using tangos instead of salves. Obviously, again, just trying to contest for a rune. In this case, like, the best thing you can really do is just gamble for a rune, and it's a lot more important than missing 1 or 2 CS, particularly if you have an empty bottle, which in this case I did. Really, really important to keep that in mind. And then afterwards, in terms of items, obviously, I go tangos, bottle, into null talismans. And in this case, obviously, I bought a null talisman because you need it just for more base damage, which just helps CS in, but also like the mana regeneration is nice, as well as the spell amp as well. In this case, I also got up some raindrops, and sometimes as well, like, and in this case I went to go for boots instead of double null talisman, and it's particularly because of reasons like this, where you don't really want to be rotating to any side lanes without boots, even if you TP, because once you finish the rotation, you're going to have to run back to mid, and not having boots is really, really slow, and it can really impact you. So I prefer going like 1 null talisman into boots, but if you don't intend to rotate to side lanes, you can just go double null talisman and raindrops and just focus on your own farm, going to side camps, yada yada yada. In this scenario, obviously, like my Slark has kind of been losing his lane, level 6 axe versus level 4 puck, but whenever you see a scenario like this as a mid, particularly when you have all your spells up, really important that you rotate and help, because now this gets a level over to the Slark, helps him improve. Like, he's been really suffering against this axe, he's been kind of free farming, and it helps a lot here that I have a regen and I'm just going to sit around. Now this is a really kind of a higher level play that you won't see too many mids play, unless you're in the higher echelons, where normally what will happen is the mid will rotate and then immediately TP back to mid, or if they TP bot, and just immediately stop back and going back to mid. But in this case, my position for AA decided to take mid while I am not there, which is obviously really important. You want to be having someone take mid lane for one of 2 reasons. 1, just because then he gets experience, and 2, really to defend the tower as well. Like, if he's playing against a DK, it's important that you try and defend this tower. But in a lane like Mars is going to be kind of okay top by himself, the lane's pushed in, and AA needs levels as well as Mars needs levels as well, so they want to kind of just get as much levels as they can, and it's just free XP that's going to be wasted if no one's here. So as a result, because my mid lane is being taken care of, there's no need for me to immediately run back to mid. So as a result, I stay bot. We see vision of this Nyx. I end up getting hit by the carapace because I'm a noob, and but luckily enough, we end up securing the kill on the Nyx as well. So right now is where you might look to sort of see the mid rotate back to mid, but because I know that this axe TP'd bottom, I think maybe I can stay and get a kill as well. Now, this is something that I saw a lot of what CNC would do. Normally, it would happen in the opposite lane. So normally, he'd be like the mid, and he'd look to try and gank and kill the enemy carry. But in this case, I know that my carry was really suffering, and the enemy offlane was playing really aggressive. So I decided to do it here. And the idea is that I TP in, kill the offlaner, and then instead of run back to mid, I just stay around here, farm this camp a little bit, and wait for him to TP in, and then try and kill him again. Because if we kill this axe again, it will completely ruin his game, and it will give my Slark a free farm in this lane and really balance the scales. So, I mean, the execution here wasn't really great. I think I show myself, yeah, and even like all chats, because like, this is UK Dota basically, and like everyone's like pretty toxic. But we have a ward here. We try and get a smoke off again, really trying to get this kill on this axe, and it's a little bit scuffed. The execution is poor, but the mentality in behind it is the right one. Instead, we try and go for this Nyx. He gets a nice double stun here, but we end up killing this Nyx nonetheless. You know, obviously Tiny eventually rotates over. I get out with an Art Orb, and I'm just kind of trying to regen up. There's some CS here that I was looking over as well, and then my Slark kind of needs me, so I end up like running back over to help him. And this is the whole point of really like knowing and utilizing your strength as a mid laner. Yeah, I'm level 8. I'm like one of the strongest heroes on my team at the moment, yeah, and I'm just trying to really abuse the fact of my strength, you know, using my spells, and then immediately we tip the guy who is all chat as well, because that's just what we do. But yeah, immediately like this game has changed, you know. Again, some more all chat though. It just makes for a fun game. And now obviously my team is back off cooldown. I can rotate mid and get the wave that's coming into my tower. But because I'm low HP and sort of low resources, you know, no ulti and cooldown, no bottle charges, I'm just gonna push out the wave and then all back to base. So I'm gonna run back to base, so I'm ready to again go if I need to. And even though what's happened, I'm still top last hits, not top net worth, because this Arc Warden is like kind of destroying. I think like because I was focusing so much on bot lane, our top lane got kind of wrecked, but that needs not to worry about. So this is something that I've seen a lot of other int mids been doing recently, is where they kind of go this double null talisman, and because I'm going to be going into Boots of Travel, they completely disregard Magic Wand, which is something that at first I thought was really bad. It's kind of poor, but kind of makes a lot of sense really when you play a lot and the kind of feeling of it. Magic Wand especially is useful and good for particularly like strength or agility heroes, because they really lack in mana. Whereas, you know, Puck doesn't necessarily mean that, because he gets his mana from like the regen from null talismans, from the bottle, as well as the raindrops as well. So you don't necessarily need the magic wand. Again, trying to focus on getting the runes, and as you can see here, we're kind of losing quite heavily really, and I was trying to stabilize the lanes, but we're still struggling as a result. So I'm going to look to rotate top and make stuff happen as they've rotated, and the enemy team has put a lot of resources in our safe lane, so we're just going to trade as best we can. So just going back to the build. So normally, like whatever you're playing, whether you're a support or a core, whether you're carry or mid or off lane, you normally want to have 3 build-up items. And for me, that's the null talismans and the bottle. And in this case, I've gone raindrops because I need it just in case I could get bursted by this tiny. And so going Magic Wand as well, like it's a lot of build-up that I'm eventually going to be replacing. What I used to do actually is instead of going straight into the Magic Wand, I'd just go like a simple Magic Stick, because it is useful. But afterwards you kind of realise that, you know, if you have a kind of an okay game, that you're replacing these items really quickly. And as a result you don't really get the chance to utilise it. So this is the build I've been doing recently. The raindrops eventually will get replaced because they just get used out, and you know, I haven't used my fairy fire, so in some ways that kind of feels it's slot up. You want to be obviously slot efficient by using all the slots available to you. In this case, obviously, you know, they dove our witch doctor. I was here with the coil, and this is the combination we sort of see with the Mars as well. He TP's in, and we ended up getting a triple kill, all from their, you know, rotation just onto our single support there. So really important to keep an eye out and have TP available. You know, Puck is one of the best heroes to rotate to ganks, particularly near the tower, because of this coil play. Really important that you have your eye around the map and looking for punishments of and around this area. So one thing you will notice though is like you want to be controlling a lot of the runes, because you are using a lot of mana just from this alone. Another important thing as well, like I've already decided I was going back to base, even though I probably could have took this bounty route and sort of stayed on the map. But because I've got travels now, like I can more afford to run back to base because I can travel to wherever I want in the lane.
I'll take that.
So just talking more about the item build that I've been building. So just briefly and quickly, hopefully there's not much to talk about in terms of the plays here, although we do see this Arc Warden playing in his safe lane, and as you know, BSJ always talks about you should never really be playing your safe lane as a carry because of scenarios like this where you can get punished. Obviously in this case it's a lot easier for us because I can just travels in, but this is what happens if you play your safe lane too much, and this, you know, Arc Warden was top net worth, and that is a huge kill for us. Yes, we lose our Mars bot lane in a similar fashion, but the carry for the offlaner is insane. Our AA luckily had Fluffy Hat and Raindrops, and as a result survives, and because of that we end up killing the Tiny as well. But just quickly, I want to talk about this item build on Puck because it is quite important. There's two schools of thought when you're playing Puck in terms of item builds. The first item builds will utilize one side of your talents, and the other item build will utilize the other side of the talents. So let's quickly look at the talents here. So one of the item builds, the one I did not go for, as again we still want to see Witch Doctor getting gone on. There's so much action, but I really want to talk about this because it's quite important. Is the damage and phase shift attack talents, and this is where you would normally go into the Witchblade, maybe the Blink and the Ags, and really focus on the right clicks as a Puck. You know, sometimes I saw CNC do this Desolator build into a BKB, and it worked quite well. And in some ways, I was a real proponent of this idea, and I still think it's good. It's just not my preferred build, but it makes a lot of sense because of a few factors. One of the factors is that a lot of the spell-focused areas of one of the focused areas before, or the spell-focused aspect of Puck is in some ways not as strong, right? Because it got nerfed in the 28C patch, the Waning Rift damage got reduced, the Waning Rift cooldown at level 20 talent also got increased, so that's been a slight nerf, and I think there was a nerf to the spell amp on the 15 as well. So overall, the spell kind of casting Puck style of builds is reduced a little bit, and as a result, you know, people were going to this damage build where you like focus on the right clicks. You go the damage talent, you go the phase shift attack, and then because of that, it really utilizes well with treads instead of travels into the Witchblade, and you can kind of build like a right-clicking Puck, and it works some way well with the Dreamcoil Rapid Fire as well, because it plays on your right clicks, you know. So you'd go the damage, you'd go the phase shift attacks, you'd even go the Illusory Orb, because that will kind of work as a pseudo blink, and then the Dreamcoil Rapid Fire, because it works as a like, right click. However, this game and most games, in truth, I still stick to the old way of spellcasting Puck because you're just so elusive, and I think it makes sense to be following along the themes of the hero. So as a result, Boots of Travel, so useful because you can just push in the wave, kind of similar to the Position 4 Puck video I made like ages ago, where you're kind of playing on pushing waves, forcing rotations, almost like a support version of an anti-mage. And going this item build, which I'm going to be talking about in a second, really utilises that, but it's this sort of spell cast, and so this cast range kind of works in the way where you don't really need to have a blink dagger because your cast range is increased with the movement you get from Waning Rift, and as a result you can kind of really play off that. So Travels is a must if you kind of want to go this style of build. If you want to go right-clicking build, you need to go Trads because it utilises well with the intelligence and the attack speed you get from it. So talking about the next item that I'm going for, as you can see here, picked up a point booster. So I'm going to be building into an Octarine Core. Again, I'm playing kind of the dangerous part of the map. In this case, it's our mid lane. Just want to talk about that as well. They really want this tower, but if I'm sitting here, I'm hard to kill. I'm pushing up the wave with Illusory Orb. They've already taken the tier 1 tower mid, and the next objective for them to take is the mid lane. And I'm the hardest to kill hero, so I actually plan this map, at this part of the map, as well as I want to be controlling runes because I have a bottle and I'm a Puck. So that's why I'm mid. And I have travels to be anywhere else if I need to as well. Again, this is a fact. This is kind of a play that you will need to master if you want to play this style of build. The cast range talent helps with this a lot. So basically, walking up to the creep wave can be a little bit dangerous, but you rift in, and then orb backwards, so that the wave will instantly die. Again, it relieves pressure. I'm looking to go for the runes, and it kind of delays the game, allows my Slark to get the items he needs. I pick up a regen, and now I'm kind of have as much regen as I want. In this case, one of my team probably should have been pushing top, but I think they're scared of the Axe Blink and the Nyx. So as a result, they smoke behind me because this lane does need to get pushed in. It's really important to kind of continually create pressure onto the enemy side of the map, as I've mentioned in a million of my videos. So yeah, talking about this point booster. So I'm building into an Octarine Core, and put simply, I completely copied this off of Topsum, probably one of the best mids in Dota right now, even though he didn't get to the major. Feels bad, man. And it works so well on Puck Puck because the hero is just focused a lot around his spells, and it's a great build up as well. So as you can see here, before point booster I had like 1100 HP, and if I didn't have raindrops I really would be dying solo to this Tiny who has a blink dagger. But going into Octarine Core, we know that they're posing around mid, by the way, so that's why we're pressuring top. So, you know, a good trade for us if we can trade. And it gives me kind of survivability. This is something that Keizu talked about actually in one of his Puck videos, that it's a really good item, and it works really well. You know, it pairs well with this Boots of Travel as well, and you know, all your hero is a spell, so any way to reduce that works really well. So fantastic item build. We don't really need damage aspects, so sometimes I've seen Topson rush an Ethereal Blade, and also they don't have a lot of physical damage either, so that's why I'm rushing the Octarine Core compared to the Ethereal Blade, because we don't really need the damage burst so far, but I will be getting into damage later. So there's that really, and it's important to kind of keep in mind that you do have a few item builds that you can kind of play around with. You know, this Octarine, this Ethereal Blade. Obviously, you can go for Yules as well, but in this case, there's no silence. It would be good against an Axe, but we have a Mars who's building into it, and I think we also have an AA building into it as well. So in scenarios like this, where my team's kind of grouped up, I can obviously immediately TP in. In this case I do. I even fought the wave because the Crystal Maiden tried to stop the TP here. The coil isn't great really because it's on a hero that's pretty tanky. We do follow up with the AA blast here, but unfortunately it's just not enough because I missed my orb here. But at the same time, yeah, I'm drawing Axe, Nyx and Tiny all away from me, and this is kind of the style of play that you want to do. They're all looking to try and find me. Luckily they don't have a ward here, but I know that because we have a sentry ward here as well. And again, I'm just trying to play around and against the enemy heroes, and in the end, you know, they initiated on us and we got a kill on the CM. But if I played it better, I probably could have killed the Tiny as well. So yeah, so just back to the item build, Soul Booster first obviously, and then into the Aether Lens, which again is really nice because it works well. I've already got a cast range talent on the talents, and now I'm going to get it from an item as well, which is great because now it means I don't even need to build a blink dagger to be useful as an initiator, which is fantastic, you know. But yeah, sometimes you might need a Yules, but I think if you do go Yules or you go Travels into Yules, like, it's very passive, and you're probably like, you know, the highest net worth hero for your team, which in this case I am obviously. Again, trying to keep the push the wave in. My Slark's kind of feeding bottom well past or well out of his way. You know, if no one's showing top, he shouldn't be there, and I'm pinging him and telling him like, why are you bot? As you do. And yeah, so that's why I kind of want to get into these bigger items, into just items like yours, for example. Another item that I've kind of completely glossed over, what I think is actually really good and it can work, particularly if you're finding a lot of kills early on, is the Urn. Another thing that Topson does, gives you kind of mana, and it gives you that extra more damage, which can be great. Which is something this kind of spell casting build for Puck does lack. The one thing I really like about this kind of the right click Puck is when you go the damage and the phase shift attacks, when you go the Witchblade, is you can basically solo kill almost anyone, particularly when it comes to like the supports. You know, if they're out alone, you can solo kill them without really using coil, which I think is great. Whereas if you go this spell casting build, normally you have to use coil, because you just simply don't have enough damage, and yeah, so that's that. But at the same time, I do like the spell casting build because it works really well in team fights, and you'll see like it's very hard to kill you as well. Whereas if you go this sort of Witchblade and things like this, you know, you're quite squishy and yada yada yada. So in terms of the kind of playstyle, so right now obviously the playstyle will depend about like how the lanes go. In this case, obviously our lanes didn't go great. My Slark survived a lot longer than I expected. Really, I thought he was going to die. I should have rotated earlier, but I do end up rotating. And we ended up killing the Tiny, and again, you know, I'm looking to kind of be as a nuisance as possible. I'm using my spells, getting out of the team fight, and then when they're coming back up, I rotate back into the team fight and looking to go back in. And that's the kind of way you want to be playing this Puck. You know, you want to be. Ideally, your initiating tool is your Waning Rift, and when you get like the Octarine Core, the Aether Lens, and the Caster Talent, it becomes a lot easier. You rift in, you coil, and then you orb into them, but also out of the team fight at the same time as well. And then once your spells come back off cooldown, you go back in and use the same thing over and over again. You don't really want to be right-clicking because you're kind of quite squishy, and you can end up dying quite easily here. Nice phase shift here, but again, you're kind of seeing a little bit of the strength of Nyx, where if you don't phase shift your orb, you can end up getting picked off. Again, you know, orbing out whenever I can. Shouldn't really be right-clicking, and as a result, kind of get punished here. But yeah, rifting in, orbing out, phase shifting, so that they can't go back on me. And unfortunately, didn't have my coil up. But in terms of the playstyle, though, I kind of mentioned it, when you have these travels, the best thing you can really be doing for your team is to be pushing waves in. Kind of similar to this anti-mage, where you're pushing waves in, forcing reaction, and then if they, you know, if they make a reaction, like say an enemy hero TP's in, so in the last 5 minutes I've been playing top a lot. If the enemy team like TP'd in and showed a hero, I would maybe TP into my team, ask for a smoke, and then look for a pick-off or a fight away from them. In this case, it's actually a little bit harder because Arc Warden kind of negates and nullifies my split pushing aspects, because he can kind of send his clone there by himself. But in some ways, it's important that I keep doing this, because then it relieves the pressure that Arc Warden can make. So that's normally the kind of playstyle you're looking for. Obviously, always wanting to look for ganks if and when possible with your travels, but as you can see here, like how I'm farming the enemy woods, like trying to be as annoying as possible, knowing that I'm very difficult to kill, you know, yeah, trying to cut waves when I know like the enemy team is like mid, or trying to sort of set up for a tier 2 top. And then particularly in these sort of more competitive games, is thinking, okay, what item do we need? What's our next item timing? What do we need? And what's our next objectives? In this case, you know, like we had, you know, right now obviously we had a few heroes die. We see an opening and they commit, and because of our crazy strong team fight, you know, good things can happen as a result. In scenarios like this, you know, our Slark's now ready, like he's got his S and Y, and he's like strong enough to participate in team fights like that. Yeah, obviously, like you're in some ways, like because you're a mid, like you're more of an enabler than a person that can start hitting towers or start taking Roche. And as a result, like you've got to be thinking that you're the one setting up kills. You're the one by like doing lane maintenance, the one initiating with Dream Coil, yada yada yada. Obviously in this scenario, like my Slark's here, he can be the one pressuring top, so immediately I'm looking to deal with waves. And waves, like honestly, are so undervalued. The lower tier you go, or alternatively, the higher tier you go, the more and more value players put onto waves. I don't put enough value onto waves because I'm like only 6-7k, but the higher you up you go, you'll notice it, because it just allows you to make moves and allows you to do everything, you know. So in this game we don't really have an ideal Roche taker, and we talked about this really. Like Slark does have, or he does get a Paladin sword later on, which is kind of lucky for us, but we don't have the greatest damage for Roche because a lot of us are on magic damage. So if we were ever to look for a chance to go for Roche, it's always after like a big team fight where like everyone is dead basically. But you know, you as a puck don't really contribute to that much. So the best thing you can do really is by looking and trying to find opportunities to, you know, either help your team by relieving pressure, or in scenarios like this where, you know, you find an Arc Warden post by himself. I asked for the AEA to rotate in. I really should be hitting him here because as a result he kind of gets a blink away and yeah, gets out of it really. So just kind of slow rotation really for the most part. Yeah. So yeah, like obviously now they try to kind of commit onto me, but this is where you sort of see the Octarine kind of core coming into play. Like, you know, phase shift is a lot shorter, and in this case, you know, I was able to get away, but my Mars died kind of as a result of my over committal. They started committing in again. I'm just looking to rift, into orb to get away. And then, particularly when I'm this low, I can't be really right-clicking at all. Obviously, now I have orb up. I'm just looking to stop that CM cancel straight away. In this case, I was able to orb, and Slot ended up cleaning up, luckily. And me kind of being super greedy, get hit by the carapace, and again, kind of punished, which does show like the strength of Nyx as a result against my hero. There. So let's talk a little bit about neutral items. This is something that I haven't really talked about too much. So in terms of tier 1, really there is the best item, which I think is probably the best item for any in hero, is Fairy's Trinket. Really, it's just fantastic. I was watching Gork's stream when he was doing the open qualifiers, and I think like Excalibur was saying like this Fairy's Trinket is like a tier 3 item as a tier 1. It's just that good. Spell damage, mana cost reduction, as well as that it has 100 health as well, which is something that any spellcaster would want. So fantastic item. I think the second, close second really is this Arcane Ring, just because as you can sort of see, I've kind of kept it for most of this game. It just really helps with having mana, and the Tenant is quite nice as well for the right click. In terms of other items that are really good for tier 2, Essence Ring kind of fulfills the same thing, mana regen. The Nevershore is again kind of similar, but also another thing that's kind of undervalued, particularly on in heroes, is really the Apple, the People's Gift, just because 13 strength is really nice for a hero. That is him. So in this case, obviously our Slark's dead. We're not really looking to fight or engage any kind of big team fights. I could have perhaps stopped the TP here from the Arc Warden. In this case, like looking back on that, probably should have, considering that its Arc Warden is having an impact, kind of killing my ward, killing my Witch Doctor, yada yada yada. But I'm just kind of focused on the waves here, so like as I wasn't going on to the Arc Warden because it was just me. Like I don't have that much damage really. I'm more of an enabler, someone that sets up. I don't really have that much kill potential until I get this F Blade and this Dagon, etc, etc. A good kind of mindset to have as Puck is that the longer drawn out team fights are, the better they're going to be, because particularly when you have an item like Octarine Core, 5-second Raining Rift cooldown, 7-second Illusory Orb cooldown, and obviously the Phase Shift is really low cooldown as well, so just the longer the fight goes on, the more time you get another volley of spells out really. But in terms of raw burst, I don't have the item build for it just yet. But Slark is up now, AA's coming as well, and right now I'm just looking for any kind of pick I can. In this case, again letting my spells do their volley. Slark isn't really much danger because he has the Dark Pact, and once one hero is dead, the rest start to fall one by one straight after. So we're just trying to catch as many as we can after one gets caught there. So yeah, so that was just the tier 2 items that we mentioned. Again, kind of this is showing the strength of my hero. Like this Octarine Core match is surprisingly tanky, 2k damage, and good thing of this, of where they feel they can maybe kill you, ends up looking bad for them. They lose like one hero, then they lose a second, and then it kind of snowballs from there. And that's all because of kind of the survivability of Puck. This is where I talked about them thinking of going to Roche. I don't offer too much in terms of helping Roche, so instead I'm just pushing in waves. Again, BSJ recently made a video about like taking Roshan and making sure that your lanes are in a good position before you do Roshan. If the lane was by the river, would be in more of a concerning position. Right now, I just TP bottom. I can't help the Rosh quickly, and then I'm going to regen up, make sure I'm in full resources, full mana and health, yada yada, to get ready for the next fight, which we are going to be looking to fight now, because Slark has the Aegis, he's building towards a BKB as well, and he's just bought because he split his Echo Saber, and I've got an F Blade as well, so I am like really strong now. But again, just making sure that I'm like dealing in waves. In this case, because they have the Aegis, like they seem happy and ready to take a fight. like without me, but because I have the Octarine core, like my cooldown on TP is kind of slow, so they're like starting fights without me because they know that they're strong enough with this DD on Slark as well as the BGB. And then I'm kind of just walking up and going to catch this axe as well. So I'm going to arrive to the team fight, it's just going to be later than expected. And you know, when you pick up like the F blade, it's kind of the first item you want to use because it reduces their magic damage or makes them more vulnerable to magic damage. So then again, it's the same kind of rotation. Like you know, in classic WoW, or, you know, WoW in general, you have like a rotation for the most amount of damage. The same thing can be kind of applied when you're fighting and playing team fights as your hero. In this case, like because I've got the cast range, rift into as many people as I can. Then coil if I have it, then orb out, or depending on what direction I want to go, and then rinse and repeat basically. Again, kind of dealing with waves going forward. Obviously, if you have a blink, like it allows you to do that easier, but I find like with the cast range challenge, you can kind of be greedy and skip it, which in this case I have. Again, I'm going to be the one sort of TPing to waves. I'm hard to kill, and not only that as well, but because of like how low cooldown my TP is, like I can always rejoin the fight a lot easier than my other teammates, for example. In this case, like obviously I know it's just the Arc Warden, but like even if it was someone else, so I think I should be okay just because of my hero compared to say like this AA or whoever, for example. Yeah, just quickly going and finishing off like the neutral items. I talked about tier 1 and tier 2, but didn't talk about much about tier 3. So tier 3 like has not as good of items as other ones really. In this case, again, this is why you kind of do the rift into orb combo in the right manner, because if I was like did it wrongly, maybe Axe would have caught me. But because the safe lane is always the most dangerous part of the map, I'm just looking to push out the wave and then immediately TP or smoke or rejoin my team. It's all about kind of quick actions as much as you can in games like this. Yeah, so probably like in tier 3, like if you're like a carry, tier 3 is like some of the best items. Paladin Sword, Elven Tunic, even Spider Legs can be of great value. But as like a hero like Puck, things like Clover Flames isn't too useful because you shouldn't be getting attacked that much anyway. But the Quickening Charm is good just because simply of that reduction in cooldown. The same reason of why Octarine Core is really nice. And then the best item you can get at tier 4 is because of the same reason is Spell Prism. But also what's quite nice is I like Stormcrafter because it kind of works as like a pseudo Yules, and it when you have Stormcrafter and Octarine Core, it gives you that 0.7 seconds of invulnerability, and then with the 3.25 of duration of phase shift and the 4-second cooldown, I can phase shift, come out of it, use Stormcrafter, and then go back into phase shift once again. So that's another really nice item for tier 4s basically. Trickster Stroke and Flicker can also be quite useful, as can obviously Thomas Leg and a Minotaur Horn. And as for tier 5, Mirror Shield, Book of Shadows, any kind of thing that makes me more elusive or more disruptive in the team fights is that kind of thing. So obviously right now, like the game's in kind of like a pretty decent position really. Again, obviously just using F-Blade into Dagons to kind of carry up and catch any combinations, and because of how far ahead we are when we have the Aegis, and when you get to this point and as Puck, like nowhere is safe basically. You're always pushing in waves and you're kind of jumping on anything that you can see. Again, giving a bit more old chat. That's so toxic really. Yeah, this game is kind of basically over, even though we had kind of a bad laning stage as a team, but because of kind of utilizing this Puck in terms of like delaying the game of pushing waves and being really useful in terms of like the team fights, it ends up being a win. There's that. So I think that's kind of it for the. So yeah, guys, this is going to be the end of the video, so I hope you enjoyed it. I know this is the first video back in a while I've made of hero guides, but I've been starting to play a lot more mid, so hopefully we'll see some more mid heroes like Quap, like Leshrac, for example, that are starting to rise in popularity. And yeah, you know, I haven't made a video like this in a long while, so I'd appreciate if you sort of like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. I think I've lost quite a few subscribers ever since I started doing that podcast on the DBC, but nonetheless, guys, I enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoyed this video too, guys. So hope to see you in the next one, and until then, guys, keep on and grinding. Peace.